There's a ton of noise out there. So how do you get decision makers to pay attention to your brand? Start a podcast and invite your ideal clients to be guests on your show. Learn more at sweetfishmedia.com.
You're listening to the B2B Growth Show, a podcast dedicated to helping B2B executives achieve explosive growth. Whether you're looking for techniques and strategies or tools and resources, you've come to the right place. I'm James Carberry.
And I'm Jonathan Green.
Let's get into the show.
Welcome back to the B2B Growth Show. Today we are joined by Jonathan Furman. Jonathan is the founder of Furman Transformation. Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Jonathan. Pleasure to be here.
It's great to have you on the show. Today we're going to be talking about extracting the hidden value from your marketing, which I think is a very cool topic. But before we get into that, maybe you can tell our audience a little about yourself and Furman Transformation and what you and your team are up to these days.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Jonathan Furman. Founded a company, Furman Transformation. This is my most recent company. It's a management consulting firm. Prior to that, I came up through an ad agency, was with them for about 5 years. Did some work in production, worked my way up to managing a team there, hit a cap, transferred over to sales, built a very extensive book over the course of about a year that was valued north of about $2.5 million. And from that point, I founded my first company, which was a business funding company, did quite well there. And then more recently founded Furman Transformation because it's really what I'm excited about. It's what gets me going in the morning. And it's what I like to do is really help young and growth stage companies really reach that next level. Essentially what we are in a nutshell, Furman Transformation is a growth agency. You could call it management consultant. Really, it's a growth agency. And essentially what we do is we focus on anything that you need that you're not currently getting. And we find creative ways to get it done and put it together for you. So whether that's increased sales, whether it's marketing, whether it's PR, operational growth, you name it, anything that revolves around the word growth is what we do and what we focus on. And we will find strategic ways to put them together, to mix and mingle, and to really find ways to take your platform and your product and your service to that next level.
Perfect. Well, and of course, that also means that you are a fantastic fit for our show, the B2B Growth Show, also a focus on growth. And this idea that we're going to be talking about today, you've been able to talk about it before. I think it was a radio piece on Money Radio with Sinclair No. Am I getting that correct?
Yeah, I had done a piece with him, but it was more of a press release. So this will be a unique topic for you guys. This one I haven't yet discussed. I think this will be a good fit for you.
Perfect. So, all right. Well, let's talk about it. Where did this kind of idea come from? What was the genesis of, where you came up with extracting this hidden value? Where have you found it? And let's just unpack that.
Yeah, let's do it. So I love this topic. I think it's a great topic, primarily because every company's got to have a marketing engine, right? Just like every company has a sales engine, every company has a marketing engine. And it's critical because that's how you're branding your company. That's how you're driving inbound leads. You want to know what you're doing and not just do it. You want to actually know what you're doing, know what you're getting, because in the long run, if you extrapolate that to the course of a year or 5 years or 10 years, you're going to be saving, you could potentially be saving hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, depending on what your budget is and, what size, where you're at in terms of growth right now. So I think it's a really key thing to break down to, a lot of times entrepreneurs, CEOs, business owners, whatever stage they're in, there's a natural inclination, especially when they're changing a new program, to just say, all right, we're just going to throw everything into this, right? And they'll just say, we're going to just test it out and throw, whatever it is, thousands of dollars into something, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands into something without properly going through certain processes and testing. And so I think it's important to do that. So when I say, start to extract the hidden value from your campaign, I like to start with the data. I think that is the best place to start. And I say, forget about external, forget about what you see on different networks, what you see on advertising platforms. Just step away from all that for a second. And the best way to do it that I can advise, put away your computer, put away your smartphone, put away your tablet, because there's so many distractions nowadays. I can't even begin to tell you, but put all of that away for a second, because you got to want to put your mind in a place where you're really focusing on what your vision is. Go to a different room, go to a conference room, sit down, get a paper, get a pen, and just for a second, visualize, and we're talking about inbound for your company. visualize what it is that your product or service is. Really, really visualize, really get in touch with it. Get in touch with that vision. It's your vision. You know it better than anybody else. And then ask yourself, who is the perfect audience? If I could have anybody buy this product, who would be the best audience, the best fit for this product or service? And just let that flow and really think that out. And what will happen is you'll develop, you'll just start coming up with overlays. So whatever it is, I don't care how ridiculous it is. Maybe it's 18 to 25-year-olds that have Ibanez guitars and like spaghetti. I don't care. As ridiculous as it is, if that's what your audience is, then that's what you need to put down. You start with that data set, and then what you do is once you've got a really strong hold on what you feel, because you know your product better than anybody else, you feel that that's a fit. Now you look at the networks and you say, well, of these 3 networks that I trust and I feel comfortable with, that I've done some work with maybe in the past, which one or which ones have the closest fit, right? So you start with one, you pick one. Now you've got a general template for your data. You've got one network, and the key to testing, and what we're talking about here is now A/B testing. The key to A/B testing is that you always, if you think of it like an experiment, you only change one variable, right? And that's the only way to do it. Everything else has to be a constant. If you think of like the scientific method or a hypothesis, it's got to be methodical. So you start with the data, start with one network, and then what you'll do, the first thing is you'll get one ad copy, you'll get one network, one ad copy. Now data sets are going to be changed, right? So you're going to do, maybe you take that same data set, but instead of spaghetti, maybe you'll change that variable to pizza, right? If that was available on the network. And then you'll have another ad set up where you change the pizza to a calzone, right? So we're in Italian, right? So, but let's just say you do that. So now you've got 3 different variations on it. You keep everything else the same. You keep your budget the same. You keep your ad copy the same. You keep the network the same. And now you can test, and you can actually run that side by side. Which one performs the best? That's going to give you some really strong insight into actually what variation of the data set worked. So that's how you start. You get that data set down. Once you've got a data set that's performing, now not only, and it gives you 2 things. First of all, the optimization of these campaigns. Number one, it makes sure that you're getting in front of the people that are going to be most receptive and most likely to correspond, to fill out a lead form, to call you. But the other thing too is that what a lot of people don't realize is that you're rewarded by these ad networks for actually having responsive ads. So the more tailored it is, the more close it is to the people that need to be seeing it, and the ad copy more receptive to those people, and all these factors, the lower your cost per click is going to be, and the higher amount of impressions that they're ultimately going to serve. So I think that's key. So you start with the data. The next step, and I know I'm talking a lot here. Did you have any questions on that, Jonathan, that you wanted to?
No, that's perfect. I was actually going to say, it was when you're talking about A/B testing, you're talking about data against data variations, which is perfect. Like you said, you're going to vary the data that, the contacts that you're trying to go after. But then this next part of the A/B testing, because you're testing one thing at a time, is of course then copy against ad copy.
Exactly. And that brings me to my next point. So that's the next step. So you've got a constant on the data, and that's an ongoing process. You can always keep testing, but for now, you get a good constant on that, find something that's working well. Then you test the ad copies. Now, this is where it starts to get fun, and ad copies. And I'll tell you, when I started my first company, which was a business funding company, I really learned firsthand, and by need, I had to sort of go through these processes. And ad copy, I'll tell you right now, can have a tremendous effect depending on what you do on not only the quality of lead, the type of lead, how many people are responding. There's so many things that can affect how your ad copy is. And so before I even go into the A/B testing, well, let's say when you A/B test, it's going to be the same principles. So you've got the data set. Now you can A/B test 3 creatives, or 3 essentially text ads or creatives, whatever it is, type of network you're on, against each other. You change one variable again. So if you've got 3 text ads, you change one header, you keep the body of it the same, the call to action is the same, all that. Or maybe you want to change a word in the description, but you keep the header the same. So you change one variable at a time. Now, as you're doing that, there are certain things that you can do to integrate into that process of the testing, because you don't want to just throw things at the wall and hope something sticks. There's a certain things you can do to get an upper hand. So one of the best things you can do, and this is one thing that I had to learn very quickly, because when I tried to put the copy together, I realized I wasn't getting the response I wanted. I said, well, what are my competitors doing, right? Because obviously if they're advertising, they're getting results, they're spending money, they're not going to be spending money if they're not getting results. So I put in the same keywords that essentially that they would be using, and I looked at their ad copy, and what I found is that there were certain common denominators in each of the ads that were present in each of them that I wasn't including. And that's a big clue, because there are certain things that are different amongst them because they're all unique. But if they're all using, for example, they're all saying one specific thing in the description that you're not saying, that's a big hint that that piece of information is something that's critical to the responsiveness of people looking at your ad and people wanting to click on your ad, or the level of quality that you're going to get from the ad. And for me, I'll tell you exactly what it was. I was dealing with business funding, which was mainly merchant cash advance. We did some invoice factoring, commercial real estate loans, things like that, but mainly merchant cash advance. And essentially, it's a small loan between usually $10,000 to $100,000. It's not a loan; it's a purchase on future receivables, but between $10,000 to $100,000, sometimes more. And so you had to have at least, the company had to have at least $10,000 a month in revenue. And so when I had first started, the companies, I would get a lot of leads. But I was getting lots of leads that were like, they had pennies in revenue, and they weren't looking for big loans. They were looking at a couple $1,000s or whatever it was. So it was like kind of a joke because I had a lot of leads, but they weren't serious. So one thing that I realized that was very important, I guess you could say it was a no-brainer until you look at the competition and say, oh, okay, that's how they're weeding that out, is they actually had a qualifier in there that said must have at least $10,000 a month in revenue. And it's a simple thing, but you wouldn't know that. You might not have included that had you not studied what the competition was doing and evaluated why is this not working. So you always want to ask yourself that question, why, and always look at the competition. Always see what they're doing. Always look for the common denominators. And from there, you'll A/B test, you'll tweak, and you'll create your own ad. And that's where you want to get, and that's where it becomes fun, and you put your personal touch on it. Now, another thing I would say is another sort of obvious one in there is always have a very clear call to action. So you never want to leave them guessing. Click here, call us today, find out more information now, whatever it is. Always have a clear call to action. If it's an ad, if it's a creative, have a button, because if you're not, it's leaving the customer confused about what they should do. You want to direct them down the funnel, just like you would in a sales funnel. It's the same thing. You're in a marketing funnel. You want to always have a clear call to action. So I think that's important. Any questions for me on that part, Jonathan?
Well, just that, and so I think that there is a third part to this A/B testing, because you have data against data. You have ad copy about ad copy, but then a third point that you had made to me offline was this idea of network to network. Now, obviously, you had to, we started this interview talking about you got to choose the network that fits for you. You need at least a jumping off point, but then it kind of almost seems like it circles back around to this idea of now testing network to network.
Yeah, exactly. I'm glad you brought that up. So that's exactly right. So now, once you've gotten your basic, your data, your ad copy, which you can now take to different channels because there's a certain level of success in that. Now the really important thing is making sure that you're on the right networks. And, I've worked with a lot of companies. I've been involved with a lot of different networks, and I've seen a lot of different things of what's successful and what's not successful. What I can tell you, first of all, is you've got to distinguish. I know this is a B2B growth show, but you've got to distinguish whether you're B2C or B2B or B2C, because there are different networks that are going to be much, much more receptive if you're a B2C product than if you're a B2B product. It is a universal truth. It is just a fact. And so, for example, B2C, your best friend is going to be Facebook and Twitter. You've got the mass amount of consumers on Facebook, especially if you got a B2C product, it's a $10 product you're trying to move, whatever it is, I don't know. If it's a B2C product, you can quickly scale up on Facebook and get a low cost per click. If you optimize it right, it's good. But your audience is not necessarily going to be professionals looking for professional services. Obviously some of them are on there, but it's not meant for that. So that's very good for your B2C. If you're on B2B, which this is a B2B growth show, I'm assuming most of the listeners are B2B, what you want is you want to get on the search networks that you know. So you want to be involved in Google AdWords, at least play with Google AdWords, Bing, and LinkedIn. Those are your best friends. And I want to elaborate a little bit on those, is that Google is great because Google is a starting point. That's where Google AdWords is a starting point. That's where everybody starts. But the problem with Google, and it's not necessarily a problem as much as it's an expense, is that there's Bing, which is owned by Microsoft. And the thing about Bing is that it's you've got essentially the exact same tools that you've got on AdWords, but it's much less known, it's much less used. But it's not to say that there's not volume on that, because you can get a ton of volume, and the price for the same thing, the same quality, I've seen, depending on the industry, depending on the keywords that you're utilizing, I've seen like anywhere from 30 to 50% of what the cost was on Google AdWords. So maybe if your keyword that you were bidding on for a certain position was, $12 on AdWords, I've seen that same keyword in the vicinity of $4 to $5 in some cases.
Yeah.
And if it's the same quality, because I've tested them, and you're getting the same, it doesn't make sense to put all your money in AdWords. So what I recommend is start with Bing. Get all the volume you can get on Bing. Because it will be, I'd say Bing is great. Bing is great quality. So it's a $1 billion company. You can't go wrong. So I say, like, if it's a $1 billion company, you probably can't go wrong with Microsoft. You can't go wrong with it, right? So start on Bing, put all your, get your testing out on Bing, scale, get all the volume you can. Once you've reached a cap on volume, then get some of the leftover on AdWords and scale there. But those are two great tools for B2B search. Obviously somebody's searching, they're actively looking for your product, they're interested. It's not like you just came across an ad, so it's going to be usually pretty targeted.
Yeah.
So I think those are some good tips.
Jonathan,
yeah.
I want to make sure then that also, because those are fantastic tips, but if you were trying to leave our listeners with the main takeaway, extracting this hidden value from your marketing campaigns, is that hidden value in that you can sort of take advantage of these different tiers of A/B testing to make sure that you're not just, throwing money away and hoping that your ad campaigns have been optimized in some way. You're being very intentionally being very critical about these different levels of testing.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I think that's the thing that you want to be focusing on throughout the process. But there's also many things within the process that can help you optimize and actually extract more hidden value from, which is, knowing a specific network and how to utilize that network, understanding within certain networks what's the best way to extract the most value. And I'll give you another example, is LinkedIn. LinkedIn is another great tool for B2B. You've got a couple options on LinkedIn. You've got in-mail, you've got sponsored posts, and then you've got just general ads. And so somebody that's putting money, they may question, well, where do I put my money on LinkedIn? So this is another really good place that you can look at how to extract more value. Is that on LinkedIn, I would recommend against in-mail. I wouldn't utilize it. That's just my opinion, because you can already add people and send a message. Not that you should spam people, but I think in-mail is a little intrusive because they haven't even added you yet, and you're sending them. So I don't see any good coming from that. I think it's a little intrusive. I would focus your efforts, if you're doing LinkedIn, which you should be having a budget for, is sponsored posts and ads. Now, I wouldn't do ads until you've built up an organic presence, which can be done for free on your personal as well as your business page. As a CEO, you want to personally brand yourself as well as your business. So you build up that organic reach. You get posts. After months and years of doing the posts, you're going to have a really strong organic reach. You're going to have people are going to see that you're doing things. You put out a press release, you put out a video. You always want to have these things coming out. And then what happens is you can start to brand yourself and solidify that by doing sponsored posts. And that's a great tool. Once you've done that, then you can utilize, I would recommend, then you utilize LinkedIn ads because if you do the LinkedIn ads before you have an organic presence, well, the first thing a client's going to do is they're going to say, well, let me look at the company LinkedIn. Where are they at? What are they doing? And if they're not seeing any activity there, that doesn't say a whole lot about the company. So that would be my final bit, if we're trying to wrap up here, would be that on LinkedIn, you got some information on how to work search on LinkedIn. That would be my best piece of advice would be, let the in-mail go, focus on the sponsored updates first, get the organic reach, and then start working on the ads. And then you can run your A/B testing on those ads and really start to drive some qualified leads into your business.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And I've said it so many times on the show that my favorite episodes are the ones where we're able to really get some actionable advice. I mean, I love talking about high concept ideas on the show, but to actually provide our listeners with some, hey, here's a piece of advice that you can take right now and apply to your business. I always love that. And you obviously have a lot of expertise in this world. If anyone in our audience is interested in following up with you, learning more about, maybe these particular pieces of advice, finding out more about Furman Transformation, or just connecting with you offline, what's the best way for them to go about doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can reach me. First of all, you can check out the website. It's www.furmantransformation.com. That's FurmanTransformation.com. Check it out. See what's going on. Look around. And then, you can shoot me an email you can shoot a general email at info@FurmanTransformation.com. You could shoot me a personal one, Jonathan at FurmanTransformation.com. Or you can just give us a call. Give us a call up. The number is 561-571-0638. That's the office number. Give us a call up. I'm always open to free consultations. I want to learn. I love learning about companies. I love learning what's going on in the industry, especially tech. I love tech right now. But I love learning about all companies. I always like to have my finger on the pulse of what's going on in every industry. So I want to find out about you as much as you want to learn about how to help your company. So give me a call. Let's talk. Let's find out what your needs are, where you're struggling, where your positives are, where your negatives are, and let's see if there's a fit. And if there's a fit, first of all, I'll try to offer you some advice as much as I can, free advice. If you feel like you've got something, you feel like there's some work that we can do and improve on, then we'll go ahead and go to work and see what we can do for you.
Perfect. Well, Jonathan, thanks again so much for taking some time out of your schedule to join us on the show today. It was a pleasure having you on.
Thanks so much, Jonathan. Appreciate you having me.
To ensure that you never miss an episode of the B2B Growth Show, subscribe to the show in iTunes or your favorite podcast player. This guarantees that every episode will get delivered directly to your device.
If you'd like to connect with B2B executives from all over the world, make sure to join our private Facebook community. There are some incredible conversations happening inside this group. To join, visit b2bgrowthshow.com/FB.
Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.